Greetings. Welcome to episode 4 of I Hate Mondays, a true crimes podcast. I would like to thank everyone for listening to the previous episode. And if you can, please leave a review on your podcast
provider
of choice who help us climb the ranks. Please subscribe and tell your friends. And if you have any feedback for us, let us know. We would like to hear from you.
Thank you so much for listening. As Michael was saying, we're like mind blown that you guys are still here and listening to us. So that's pretty cool. We didn't expect that. If you want, you can follow us on our social media. We have Instagram, Facebook, and we're now on TikTok. So if you want to see whatever silly thing I can come up with, go follow us. It's all I Hate Mondays podcast. If you look for that, you'll find it. Anyway, everything is linked in the description. And also, before we start, I just want to remind you guys, since we didn't say it last episode, that we're not professionals. We are professional in our fields, but we're not police officers. We are not lawyers. We're not any kind of murder, crime, etc. professionals.
Correct.
So if we make mistakes, well, we're just human.
Are you ready to begin?
I'm so excited for your episode because last time you left us on a cliffhanger saying to take a plane ticket and we're going to go to the States. So I'm pretty excited to know what that was about.
Well, strap in because the captain has put on the seatbelt sign. So my sources are the FBI, a YouTube video, and Britannica, and the New York Magazine.
Wasn't there a Netflix episode or something?
I didn't watch the Netflix episode. Okay. Let's begin. The thrilling story of D.B. Cooper.
Oh my God.
On November 24th, 1971, a man carrying a black briefcase walked up to the counter of Northwest Airlines at Portland International Airport. He paid in cash for a one-way ticket to Seattle, Washington on Flight 305. And on the ticket, the man wrote Dan Cooper.
Because back in 1971, you had to fill up your own ticket?
Yeah, the FBI has a photo of the ticket, and he wrote it. And it has all the... I don't know if he wrote it or if the woman at the counter did, but it has Dan Cooper as the name that he jotted down.
We'll share that on Instagram and Facebook.
Eyewitnesses described Cooper as a white guy in his mid-40s with dark hair, brown eyes, wearing a black business suit, white shirt, thin black tie, and a black raincoat and brown shoes. And he was carrying a briefcase. Cooper sat in the middle last row on the right side. So he's way in the back of the plane.
In the middle?
The middle seat on the right side.
Okay.
He ordered a bourbon and a 7-Up, and he had a smoke.
Apparently. Oh, yeah. Because you could smoke in the plane back then.
Once the airplane was airborne, he handed an envelope to the flight attendant, Florence Scoffner, who was sitting in the jump seat at the back of the plane, obviously, because he was in the back. Who else would he pass it to? She put the note in her purse, thinking it was a random businessman's phone number. Cooper leaned in close and whispered, "Miss, you better look at the note. I have a bomb."
Da, da, da.
Scoffner opened the note and found a pretty straightforward message in a neat, all-capital letters in a felt-tip pen. The message said, "Miss, I have a bomb in my briefcase, and I want you to sit by me." She handed him the note back, sat next to him, and asked to see the bomb. Cooper opened the briefcase, and she saw 2 rows of 4 red cylinders with a wire attached to a battery.
Mm-hmm.
Cooper then closed his briefcase and told Schaffner his demands. She noted down Cooper's demands and headed to the cockpit and informed the rest of the flight crew. Cooper's demands were $200,000 in a backpack by 5 p.m., 2 front and 2 back parachutes, By asking for the parachutes, Cooper implied he was planning on taking a hostage with him so that the authorities don't supply him with non-functional equipment. Captain Scott told her to stick around for the rest of the flight and take notes as they happened. The captain
The captain.
The captain radioed in Cooper's demands to Northwest Flight Operations in Minnesota. While Schaffner in the cockpit, flight attendant Tina Mucklow sat down next to Cooper to help facilitate communications between Cooper and the flight crew.
So they sent Florence to stay in the cockpit.
Yes.
And Tina
Yeah.
to Cooper.
Yeah.
Which is funny because like Florence knew, quotation mark, Cooper.
Right. Now you are a flight attendant. What if you were in this situation?
So first of all, I wasn't a flight attendant for very long, but like I kind of remember some stuff. First of all, if some passenger gave me a note like that, I would have probably thought it was some phone number too, because these things can happen. But at the same time, first of all, I'm curious. So for sure, I would have opened it right away. But also, you're trained to be checking like any kind of suspicious activity. Like, let's say you're in the airport and you see
a weirdo.
No, sorry, I just remembered this video that we were shown in our training. If you see like some sort of package left unattended or like a suitcase unattended, random, you're supposed to report it. Report. Okay, I'm making a joke to my fellow old coworkers. If you're listening, ha ha ha. I hope that reminds you something. Okay, Team Excellence. Okay, whatever. Moving on. Yeah. So you're trained to make sure nothing suspicious happened on the plane. So if you're passed a note, technically you should read it. So I would have read it, and I don't know how far she was from him because it depends what plane it was.
It was a Boeing 727.
Never flew these.
They're old.
Yeah, I figured. But like it depends where the jump seat is placed.
Oh, I don't know.
Because usually jump seats, you have a phone on your jump seat. So I think I would have directly called the captain from my jump seat. Because you have a phone right there, but it depends if he was seeing me or not. But I wouldn't have liked to have a sit with him and check out his little bum. That's for sure.
Fair enough. Okay, let's continue. Cooper added more demands. When landing at SeaTac, fuel trucks were to meet the plane and all the passengers were to remain seated while Mucklow brought the money aboard.
Did you skip a part?
No.
Because he did his demand?
Yeah, he had a demand with the thing, and then Schaffner went up front and Mucklow sat down and to be the new communicator, and now he added more demands.
And then they landed.
His demands were fuel trucks were to meet the plane and all the passengers were to remain seated while Mucklow brought the money on board the plane. He will let the passengers go once he had the money. Also, the last items brought aboard would be the 4 parachutes.
Now there's 4 parachutes?
There was always 4. There was 2 front and 2 back parachutes.
This guy is getting mad at me.
Are you not listening?
I'm sleepy.
Captain Scott informed SeaTac Air Traffic Control of the situation. Air traffic controller reached out to Seattle police and the FBI. To keep things under control, the passengers were told that the flight would be delayed due to a minor mechanical issue. Oh yeah, because they were up in the air for a while, just circling around until his demands were being put together. I don't know I think I explained it somewhere. Oh yeah, I do explain it. Okay, I'll just keep going. Northwest President Donald Nayrope gave the green light to authorize the payment of the ransom and ordered all employees to cooperate with Cooper. and to comply with his demands. For a couple of hours, Flight 305 circled Seattle, Washington to give the Seattle police and FBI sufficient time to gather Cooper's ransom money and parachutes and to get emergency teams in place. During the flight, Cooper made it clear that Mucklow was to stick with him at all times.
That's Tina, right?
Yeah, Tina Mucklow. She later said Cooper was familiar with the local terrain. While looking out the window, he said, "Looks like Tacoma down there." Mucklow told Cooper that the parachutes were coming from McCord Air Force Base. Cooper noted that it was a 20-minute drive from Seattle to Tacoma. Mucklow described Cooper's demeanor as was not nervous. He seemed rather nice, and he was not cruel or nasty.
Interesting.
Yes, he was a nice dude in the air. I think he had fake bombs, but anyways. While the plane was circling Seattle, Mucklow started chatting with Cooper. She asked him why he chose Northwest Airlines to hijack, and he just laughed and said, "It's not because I have a grudge against your airline. It's just because I have a grudge."
Okay. He had a grudge?
Yeah,
What kind of grudge?
I don't know.
He just had a grudge.
He just had a grudge.
Interesting.
He explained that the flight was just convenient for him. Meanwhile, the $200,000 ransom was received from the Seattle First National Bank, which had serial numbers beginning with the letter L. All the bills had the capital L, and then whatever random thing they do with it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So serial number, capital L.
Yeah.
I think that's an important element to remember in your mind.
Yes. And was photographed by the FBI on microfilm.
What is microfilm?
Microfilm is a way of storing information like documents, newspapers, or photos by shrinking them down into very tiny images on a special roll of film. Microfilm was commonly used in libraries, offices, and archives to save space while keeping records safe for a long time because film lasts longer than paper. Seattle police also got the 2 front parachutes from a local skydiving school and the 2 back parachutes from a local stunt pilot. Around 5:24 p.m. PST, which is the West Coast
Pacific
Standard Time, Captain Scott told Cooper that the parachutes had been delivered to SeaTac and they'd be landing soon. At 5:46 PST, Flight 305 touched down at SeaTac. Cooper wanted to keep things simple, so he had the plane parked on a partly lit runway away from the main terminal.
Interesting.
Cooper told the airline to send out only one person with the parachutes and the money, and they had to enter and exit through the front door. Al Lee, the airline's Seattle operations manager, was chosen for the task. To avoid any confusion, he changed out of his uniform and into some civilian clothing.
What was his uniform?
I guess he had maybe like a suit with like Northwestern stuff on it.
Yeah.
The ground crew attached a mobile stair to the plane, and Mucklow went out to get the ransom money. When she came back, she carried the money bag past the passengers to Cooper in the back row. He agreed to let the passengers go, and as they debarked, Cooper inspected the money. Mucklow tried to lighten the mood by jokingly asking Cooper if she could have some of the cash. What? What were you going to say?
I was going to ask, is he going to give her?
He agreed, but then she would have to give it back because it's against company policy to accept tips.
For real?
Yep.
Did he say that? Or she said that?
I think that's just written that it's against the company's policy.
Oh, it's not Cooper that told her that.
Yeah. It was just like she was just joking with him. But yeah.
Good one.
The passengers were all safe, and only Cooper and the 6 crew members were left on the plane.
6 crew members. That's a lot. So that's a big plane, a Boeing 727.
Captain William A. Scott, First Officer William Radazak, Flight Engineer Harold E. Anderson, and flight attendants Alice Hancock and Tina Mucklow and Florence Schaffner.
Okay, so it's like a smallish plane.
Yeah.
I worked on Airbus 320, and it was like the same amount of flight attendant.
3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mucklow made 3 trips outside to get the parachutes, which she brought back to Cooper in the rear of the plane. Meanwhile, the crew was trying to figure out how to refuel the plane, but it was taking a while. Cooper complained that the money was delivered in a cloth bag instead of a knapsack. So he had to improvise and stuff some of the cash in a parachute bag.
Oh, he wanted a backpack, but instead he got like a tote bag?
Yeah. Fabric tote bag.
Okay.
Canvas bag. I guess it was like the traditional money bag that you see in cartoons.
Ah,
And he wanted it like in a backpack.
yeah.
Cooper was getting impatient and told the crew to get the plane ready for takeoff. Cooper told the pilots to fly to Mexico per his instructions. The plane needed to fly at a low speed at 200 knots and an altitude of 10,000 feet.
Oh, that's pretty low.
Yep. And to keep the landing gear down and the cabin unpressurized.
Ha. So did they have masks?
I don't think so.
Interesting.
First Officer Radizak pointed out that this would limit the plane's range, so they would need to refuel again before heading to Mexico. Cooper agreed to stop in Reno for refueling, and he also told the crew to take off with the rear exit door open and the staircase extended, because this airplane had an extended staircase at the back.
I see. That must have been very pleasant in terms of oxygen.
Yes. Northwest officials were worried about safety, but Cooper countered by saying, "It can be done, do it." But then he changed his mind and said he would lower the staircase once they were airborne.
So at that point, the door is open, but the stairs are not.
I think all the doors were closed.
Oh.
And yeah, he's about to. I'll get to it.
Yeah. But it kind of blows my mind because I've never, like, you're always supposed to close the door and make sure that the doors are closed. And like when way before you fly, you're supposed to say that your door is closed to like really call the other people, the other crew member, and say that your door is closed, and you relay that information to that captain. So all the doors are supposed to be closed at all times.
Right.
So my nose oxygen level right now is in panic mode if like a door was open.
Flight 305 took off from SeaTac around 7:40 p.m. with only Cooper, Mucklow, Scott, Radizak, and the flight engineer Anderson on board. 2 F-106 fighters and a Lockheed T-33 trainer were following the plane, flying in a pattern to stay behind without being seen. As they took off, Cooper told Mucklow to lower the ATF staircase, so the staircase in the back of the plane.
ATF stands for
AFT.
Yeah, aft.
Aft.
Yeah.
It just says near toward or the stern of a ship or the tail of an aircraft.
Yeah, aft is at the tail, but it doesn't stand for something.
American Federation of Teachers.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, aft
or
is
automatic
behind.
fine tuning.
Okay, aft means in the back.
Aft is the back area of an aircraft. The term is interchangeable with rear to describe the plane's back end. Okay, but she was worried about being sucked out of the plane. The flight crew suggested she come to the cockpit and get an emergency rope so that she can tie herself to a seat. But Cooper rejected the suggestion. He told her to go back to the cockpit and close the curtain portions between coach and first class sections and not to come back. Before she left, Mucklow begged Cooper to take the bomb with him, but he just said he'd either disarm it or take it with him.
He'd either disarm it or take
take
it with him.
Like I said earlier, I think it was a fake bomb to scare them.
Sounds like it because that took a long time. Like, isn't it on a timer, that bomb?
I don't know. It's not on a timer. I think
Oh.
he just probably had to like flip a switch or
Oh.
because it was connected to a battery.
Oh. I don't know why I think bomb equals timer.
Well, maybe Hollywood. I don't know. They didn't really go into detail about the bomb, or maybe yeah, because like he took it with him. Anyways, okay, I'm not gonna go too far.
Okay, we didn't say that. Okay, so he doesn't want Tina to attach herself to a rope to a seat, so he tells her to close the blind between Coach and.
Yeah, he told her to go back to the cockpit and then to close the blinds in each section.
And not come back.
Yeah, not to come back. Okay, as she walked to the cockpit, she saw Cooper tying the money bag around his waist. She stayed in the cockpit for the rest of the flight to Reno and was the last person to see Cooper. Around 8 p.m., a warning light flashed in the cockpit because the AFT staircase had been deployed. Scott asked Cooper over the intercom if he needed help, but all he said was no. The flight crew's ears popped from the change in air pressure, and at 8:13, the plane's tail section suddenly pitched upward, forcing the pilots to trim and return the aircraft to a level flight. In an interview with the FBI, Ratzak said the sudden upward pitch occurred near the suburbs of north of Portland.
So they were nowhere near Mexico yet.
No. With the aft cabin door open and the staircase still deployed, the flight crew was unsure if Cooper was still on board. Mucklow used the intercom to tell Cooper they were approaching Reno and that he needed to raise the stairs so that the airplane could land safely, but he didn't respond. At 11:02 p.m., Flight 305 landed at Reno Tahoe International Airport.
So their ears must really hurt. Do they fucking have air?
Well, they're in the cabin. The flight, whatever, the pilot's cabin.
Yeah.
So I'm sure
I think you can pressurize the cockpit.
Yeah, that's the word. I was on cockpit.
And pressurize the cabin. Like I think there's like two switch.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying switch there. I don't know, but
right. Okay, it landed, and the FBI and other law enforcement agencies set up a perimeter around the plane. Captain Scott searched the cabin and confirmed that Cooper was no longer on board. After a 30-minute search, the FBI bomb squad declared the cabin safe. So he took the bomb with him.
He took the bomb, the money, and he jumped out of the airplane.
Yep.
Flying at 10,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
In the dark, by the way. And apparently it was raining.
Oh my God, in the dark?
Yeah, and his parachutes were non-controllable.
So he was just like bobbling around?
I guess so. But I'll just keep on going with the story. The FBI investigators found 66 latent fingerprints and Cooper's black clip-on tie. They also found 2 of the 4 parachutes, one of which have been opened and had some of the lines cut off. The agents interviewed a bunch of eyewitnesses in Portland, Seattle, and Reno, and made some composite sketches. Local police and FBI agents started questioning possible suspects. Here's a little tidbit for why people call him DB Cooper. In a rush to meet a deadline, reporter James Long made a mistake and wrote down the hijacker's name as DB Cooper instead of Dan Cooper. This mistake got repeated by other reporters, and soon everyone was calling the hijacker DB Cooper.
Oh, so it's Dan Cooper. It's actually Dan Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
The FBI thought maybe the hijacker used his real name or a fake name before. So they looked into a guy named DB Cooper in Portland, and he had a minor record, but they ruled him out as a suspect. Another thing, Also, there was a French-Canadian comic book called Dan Cooper, which follows the adventures of a Royal Canadian Air Force test pilot named, you guessed it, Dan Cooper.
What?
Yeah. Some researchers speculate that the hijacker, D.B. Cooper, may have taken inspiration from the comic book, but the comic book was never translated into English, which means that the hijacker likely spent time overseas. And the comic book was only available here in Canada and in Europe.
Okay, overseas. I mean, the U.S. is not overseas from Canada.
But
Spend time abroad.
I think that was listed in the FBI report.
So he probably spoke French.
There was something like he asked for the money in a weird way, like American currency. Like he was like, "Oh, I want 200,000 in American currency." It's hard to distinguish like an English speaking Canadian and American.
Yeah.
It's because we sound very similar. I mean, the
Yes.
further south you go, the more distinct the accent is. Like you can tell apart from like someone from, I guess, Louisiana.
Yes.
So there was like, I think somewhere, I don't remember where, they thought maybe he was Canadian.
Yeah, because he asked for American currency.
Yeah, the way he worded some of his demands.
Also, why would an American ask for American money? Like, I think when you live somewhere, you just take for granted that it's
that currency.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how much was worth the Canadian dollar versus American dollar back in 1971, but if it's like now, it was probably more. Therefore, it was worth more.
Right. The FBI had a hard time figuring out where Cooper might have landed because there was so many variables. They had to estimate the airspeed, altitude, and the environmental conditions, and Cooper was the only one who knew how long he was in free fall before pulling the ripcord. The F-106 pilots didn't see anyone jumping from the plane, and their radar did not pick up a deployed parachute. Cooper was probably hard to see because he was wearing black and it was dark.
That's something else. He jumped off a plane in the night. That does not sound like something I want to do.
You jumped out of a plane?
I sure did, but it was in a small plane in a controlled environment done for parachuting. Therefore, I knew exactly where I was landing because the parachute was controllable and there was this guy operating for me. So, yeah.
A professional
parachuter. Yeah.
Whatever the job titles.
Yeah, and I don't know how high you go in parachute, but I have a feeling it's not 10,000 feet. I have a feeling it's lower.
Like 5,000 feet?
Yeah, I think.
8,000 feet?
Mm-hmm. It's not super high.
The FBI used an SR-71 Blackbird to retrace the flight path and take pictures, but it was too cloudy to get any good shots. They also did an experiment where they dropped a 200-pound sled out of a plane to see if they could recreate the conditions. The FBI thought Cooper might have landed near Mount St. Helens, but they couldn't find anything. They searched a huge area on foot and by helicopter and even checked the local farmhouses. They also searched the lakes by boat but didn't find anything. The FBI coordinated an aerial search along the entire flight path, but didn't find anything relevant.
Damn. So this guy just jumped and disappeared?
Hold on.
Okay, holding on.
Eventually, they narrowed down the search area to Clark and Cowlitz counties and searched for 18 days in March and April. They found a skeleton. It was just a girl who had been murdered a few weeks before.
Holy shit.
Maybe she saw something. I don't know.
Damn.
I
Didn't know
look
the story.
I don't know. I think DB Cooper was a bigger deal than her. Anyways, in the end, they still didn't find any evidence related to the hijacking. They did find out that Cooper probably jumped over the town of La Center, Washington, but they still don't know where he landed or what happened to him. A month after the hijacking, the FBI sent out lists of the money ransom serial numbers to banks, casinos, and other places that deal with a lot of cash. They also gave the numbers to law enforcement agencies around the world in case he decided to spend it abroad. Later, the U.S. Attorney General John N. Mitchell released the serial numbers to the public. Unfortunately, it also led to some scammers using fake $20 bills with the Cooper serial numbers to swindle a Newsweek reporter out of 30 grand.
What?
Okay, here's where it starts to get a little bit more interesting.
Ooh.
In 1980, pretty much 9 years later, an 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram was on a family vacation at Columbia River at a beachfront called Tina Bar.
Tina. Tina again?
Yeah, Tina again.
Bar.
Okay, while he was building a campfire, he stumbled upon 3 packets of cash that had been buried in the sand, totaling about $5,800.
Whoa.
The money was part of a ransom that D.B. Cooper had demanded, and it was still bundled together with rubber bands.
He knew that, the little kid?
No, he just saw it, and I don't know. I think he
Told his parents?
Yeah, and the parents just probably called the cops or something. Like, there's this stash of money here.
So they found it because of the serial number? They knew it was his?
Yeah, the parents knew the serial numbers, so they brought it to the FBI, and the FBI checked it out, and
It was a match?
it was a match.
Damn. As if you find $5,000 on the beach. I'm not that lucky.
Mm-hmm. The FBI confirmed that the money was indeed part of the ransom, but it also raised a lot of questions. At first, people thought that the money was washed up from the river, but it turned out that it was probably buried on purpose. So then where's the other money? The investigation got even more complicated when investigators found out that the money had been buried after 1974, when the Army Corps of Engineers had done some dredging on the river. In 2020, they found out that the money had probably been buried in the spring after the hijacking had happened.
What?
In 1986, the money was divided up between Brian Ingram and Northwest insurer Royal Globe Insurance, and the FBI kept 14 examples of it as evidence.
What?
Yeah.
The kid who found the money was able to keep it?
I believe the insurance company had to give him the money because the money that they found was all like degraded and it looked all funky doo.
So this guy dug up on a beach, found some money, and he got the money? I'm not that lucky. I'm lucky, not that lucky.
You're lucky. Brian Ingram sold some of his bills at an auction for 37 grand in 2008.
This guy found money. It keeps on getting better.
I don't know if that money has any value because, like I was saying, the money was all degraded. It had
but
holes
he
and
sold
it.
it for $30,000.
Okay, well, yeah, because the history behind it.
Holy moly, that's some easy $30,000.
Mm-hmm. The Columbia River ransom money is still the only confirmed physical evidence from the hijacking that has been found outside the plane. It's still not entirely clear how the money ended up where it did. There was a bunch of suspects, so I chose 2 of them. Richard McCoy Jr. was an Army vet who served 2 tours of duty in Vietnam, first as a demolition expert and later as a helicopter pilot with the Green Berets. After the military, he became a warrant officer in the Utah National Guard and loved skydiving. On April 7th, 1972, McCoy pulled off the best-known copycat hijack. He boarded a United Airlines flight in Denver, Colorado, and demanded 4 parachutes and $500,000.
What?
He even left behind some clues like his fingerprints on a magazine and a handwritten note. He was eventually caught with the ransom money and got a 45-year sentence.
Oops.
2 years later, McCoy escaped from Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary with several accomplices by crashing a garbage truck through the gates.
What?
He was tracked down in Virginia Beach 3 months later and got into a shootout with the FBI. Unfortunately, he didn't make it.
Oh, shit.
Some people think McCoy might have been D.B. Cooper or Dan Cooper. They point out some similarities between the two hijackings and some clues that McCoy's family says belong to him, but the FBI did not consider him a suspect. The FBI says that McCoy was too young and didn't match the description of Cooper. Plus, he was in Las Vegas on the day of the Portland hijacking, which didn't seem like coincidence. In 2024, so this year, McCoy's 2 kids said they think their father might have been Cooper. They found a parachute in their mother's storage shed and gave it to the FBI to investigate. But the FBI hasn't confirmed anything yet.
What?
In 2018, an article in the Oregonian, what a funny name,
Oregonian.
Yeah, okay. Proposed a new suspect in the DB Cooper / Dan Cooper case, William J. Smith. The article was based on research by the Army data analyst who sent his findings to the FBI. Smith was a World War II vet from New Jersey who had a pretty interesting background. He enlisted in the United States Navy after high school and even got combat air crew training. After the war, he worked for the Lehigh Valley Railroad, but things got tough when the company went bankrupt in 1970. The analyst thought that Smith's loss of his pension might have created a grudge against the airline industry for their role in bringing the downfall of the rail transportation industry, which could have motivated him to pull off the hijacking. Smith was 43 at the time, and the analyst pointed out that he had the right skills to know about airplanes and parachutes from his aviation experience. Plus, his railroad experience would have helped him find a way to escape after landing. He also lived and worked his entire life in the northeastern U.S., while the hijacking occurred in the Pacific Northwest. The fact that Smith was a yard master is interesting. The clip-on tie was examined using an electron microscope, which had a various metallic particles. So the tie had
They examined the tie, the clip of the tie
yeah,
on the microscope.
with the microscope, and through the microscope, it had various metallic particles. And according to the analyst, the aluminum spiral chips on the clip-on tie might have come from locomotive maintenance facility, so like railroads and.
Interesting.
Smith also had a friend named Dan Clare, who was stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington during the war, and the analyst thought that Clare might have given Smith some info about the Seattle area. The article even noted that a picture of Smith on the Lehigh Valley Railroad website looked a lot like the FBI sketches of Cooper. And I tend to agree. The sketches and his photo look
very similar.
Yeah. The FBI did not comment on the tip, but it's definitely an interesting lead to consider.
Okay, but I'm really curious about the parachute that the kids found.
McCoy? They haven't said anything. Maybe they're working their magic.
If we find anything, if we hear about anything, we'll keep you updated, guys.
Over the years, the FBI has looked into over 1,000 potential suspects in the DB Cooper / Dan Cooper case. But it turns out that a lot of them weren't very serious. We're talking about people who just wanted to be famous or confess to the crime on their deathbed. In 2016, the FBI decided to put the DB Cooper/Dan Cooper case on the back burner. They said they needed to focus on more pressing issues, but they still keep the door open for anyone who might come forward with new evidence. The FBI has a huge file on the case, 66 volumes worth,
Whoa.
and they are keeping it all online for anyone who wants to take a look, which is true because I've seen it. It goes on forever.
Wow.
And just to put it in perspective, the Dan B. Cooper/Dan Cooper case is still the only unsolved case in air piracy in commercial aviation history.
Whoa. Damn.
And also, there's a Netflix series on Dan Cooper. I think it came out this year.
We should watch it.
And that's the story of Dan Cooper.
Oh my God. I've heard about it before, but in my head, like, it didn't sink in much. And I thought, like, oh, this guy just disappeared, or like he fell and he died. But like, I forgot about the part about the guy who found the money.
The kid.
The kid who found the money. Like, how did this money? Who put the money in the sand? Like, why? What happened? Do we know if he ever used the money?
No, there's nothing. There's nothing of that because they know the serial number, because if he uses it like let's say at a McDonald's, then they know, like, okay, he was at this McDonald's, so he's clearly in this area somewhere. So, but there's nothing.
And what if he used it in another country? Let's say he went to, I don't know, Romania.
Oh, I don't know. It would come up, I'm sure. But maybe he's just holding on to it.
Like a treasure?
Yeah, maybe it's just sitting there. I wonder if, like, maybe he has kids and he's just telling it, oh, open this in 2036 or something.
Well, if it's McCoy, they already found his parachute, and I really want to know what's up with this thing. Imagine it's him. Imagine the kids, they found that, and then they learned that their dad had hijacked the plane and jumped off the plane. That's crazy. I can't imagine finding that. Can you?
I don't know, but there's people think he, like, died when he jumped out of the plane.
Well, that was my first thought. Like, when I first learned about that, I'm like, there's no way this guy survived.
In the dark, and plus, like, a cloudy, wooded area. You couldn't even see.
Yeah, he didn't have like a flashlight.
I don't think so.
I mean, I don't know what kind of use a flashlight is when you're falling from the sky in a parachute.
Right. How did the fighter jets not see him?
Were they like taking a nap?
I mean, it was dark, but wouldn't they have seen the lights from the stairwell? Like, I don't know if that thing was lit, or they could have seen. They must have seen something, like maybe the light spilling from the inside, spilling outward.
Well, there's not much light in the plane.
Right.
At night.
Right.
He probably asked that the lights are turned off.
Maybe.
And especially if everybody evacuated.
Right.
There's just the little lights and the like emergency lights.
Right. Yeah. That's the story of DB Cooper. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode.
That was one crazy ride. Thank you so much for listening to our episode. If you haven't listened to the previous ones, go check it out. And you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. It's I Hate Mondays podcast. We
have a link tree that you can easily go to all these places.
Yeah, everything is there. So if you end up on one, you can end up on another one. It's all there. Give us a like, a follow, share to your friends and family, share to your stories, share on your Facebook page, spread the love, because, we're having fun writing those stories and telling them for you guys. So I don't know if you celebrate Christmas or whatever, or Hanukkah or whatever.
Hanukkah? Hanukkah? Hanukkah?
Hanukkah?
Yeah. How do you say it in French?
Hanukkah. That's why I said Hanukkah.
Hanukkah?
Okay. Since we started our podcast just in November, we're not taking a break for the holidays. Maybe next year, who knows? So we're still here every 2 weeks telling you true crime stories. Next episode, I will be telling you a story.
Okay, we'll see you December 30th. And I hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever the hell you celebrate.
And if you don't celebrate, if you're alone, you can listen to our episodes. You can DM us if you want to chat, if you feel lonely. We're here.
Yes.
Don't hesitate. We're nice people. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
See you in 2 weeks. And until then, do what you do.